Admittedly, local SEO is not my strongest suit, so I want to bring on a friend. His name is Mark Luckenbaugh. He is a certified local SEO badass. He's got a couple of agencies in the local SEO space. He's got a Facebook group with over 25,000 people in it, all dedicated to local SEO. He's also got a couple of software companies that are collecting tons of data points on local SEO. He's got so much insight about local SEO, what's working right now, how links affect things, do citations matter, should you be geotagging things. I ask him all these things in our interview session. If you want to join in on these live events and ask our guests questions, make sure you go to the blueprint.training/live events to get notifications of when the next ones are going live. With that being said, let's jump into the interview. Always ask me questions, and I know the general gist of local SEO, right? I understand GMB optimizations, all that stuff, but you're someone that I've always seen is who's really far down in the weeds just in terms of like testing. You have local Viking, all that stuff. You've got a lot of data. I've got a lot of questions for people in the Blueprint who want to ask you about local SEO stuff. So I just want to transition into that. So, I mean, just first and foremost, like over the past couple of years, has there been a shift in local SEO? I mean, there's obviously a lot more noise. Can you just kind of talk to like what's going on in local SEO right now, changes?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest, and I guess maybe this is an interesting place to start, but I want to because of how you said you usually focus on those 3 to 6K a month retainers. We're now at a point where, local SEO is so much more complex than it used to be. And this, to add on, and I can dive deeper into this, but the volatility of GMB as well. I mean, it's a very volatile GMB client. I don't know if anyone was following it, but there's been millions of legitimate listings erroneously suspended. I guess Google was taking spam listings and running it through their machine learning models, and they were matching that, and they were just pulling the trigger and just assuming that their AI correctly identified all of the spam listings, and that was a mess. They're like, shoot first, ask questions later. But all of that, like a lot of people were like, oh, I'm going to stay away from that. I was like, for me, it's like, let's dive deeper in because that means it's a more valuable, I guess, I have like 7 ideas at once. So let me organize my thoughts. But I guess the first thing to consider is like the difference we see in how many phone calls, how many leads you get from the 3-pack as opposed to organic and local SERPs. It's insane. It's not even a fair competition anymore. Like if you're not in that 3-pack, you're hurting in terms of local visibility.
So in terms of like the SERPs underneath it, or in terms of like the GMB listings after number 3?
So both, to be honest. Like organic doesn't hit as hard as it used to in local SERPs, right? And that's primarily where I'm at. And the nice thing is we do have data on almost 1 million listings through the software platform, which is something I'm proud of. It's a vanity number, but it's dope, man. 1 million anything's cool.
Yeah.
So we do get to see a lot of data, which gives us a very fortunate advantage in seeing like, damn, this is producing, a lot more leads than ever. And it's, stuff that our personal projects through the agency, we can see the difference in Google Analytics between what's driving leads and phone calls. So it's so much more important than it ever was, and it's a lot more difficult. I know you remember the time when you ranked GMBs with citations. You had to have more citations than the competitor. Like, what a lovely time, and it's just not. What was it, a 7-pack then, or whatever?
Yeah.
Go
ahead, finish your thoughts. Sorry.
Oh, but it's just way more complex now, and there's the entire local algorithm is disjointed from the organic. Obviously, it actually has an independent team that works on it, agnostic of the other engineers. In my opinion, I'm not trying to bash them, but they're not nearly as good of engineers. The API is wonky. Like everything's kind of a step down, but at the same time, it has this 3-pronged algorithm that is just a lot more complex than it used to be. And you can charge a lot more. In our legal agencies, we have 2 of my agencies are legal centric. We're talking 5-10K a month plus, and I'd say 70-80% of our focus right now is making sure their GMB is visible.
Can you talk to that? You said there's a 3-prong approach to GMB or local. Can you unpack what those 3 things are?
Absolutely. It's prominence, relevance, and proximity. So prominence is basically synonymous with authority, and we all understand that, right? If you know SEO, it's literally there used to be disjointed and blended SERP results in terms of local, where you would see an organic site ranking, and you had to have your organic site ranking in order to have the GMB, and it's not quite like that anymore, but we do still find a really strong correlation between the authority of the page that the GMB is linked to and the overall authority of the site. We have some pretty cool. I don't know if anyone follows it. We have a free newsletter that goes out once a week. Like, we have a small team dedicated to SEO tests now, and it's all free. Like, we're not trying to monetize, right? Just build value. And we have some pretty cool sets of data that are pretty as controlled as you can get in SEO, right? That correlate just building links and strengthening the site that's associated with the GMB. You can get the GMB to pop. Relevance is, of course, which this is obvious, but you need to make sure you're geographically and niche relevant. Google wants to serve, if someone's looking to get a new roof in Baltimore, they want to serve roofers in Baltimore. Proximities, it's not a hard concept to understand, but it's the most difficult to manipulate. And this is where, like, rank trackers become a mess. This is where everything becomes a mess, because there's still a lot of people that don't understand quite how it works. And they also don't understand, kind of like, GPS isn't perfect, right? And locating exactly where people are, it's just not perfect. We have a cool write-up, it's just free content, but on the blog on Local Viking, we have a really cool article that kind of breaks down some tests on how GPS works and the fail rate and whatnot. But essentially, if you and I are, you still in Miami?
Yeah.
You and I are kicking it in Miami, and I'm like, damn, let's go get some Thai food, right? And we're walking because I need to get my steps up. I'm trying not to be so fat all the time. And we're walking. I'm trying to keep up with you. And we Google something on the phone. Google's going to understand we're walking. It's going to want to serve something convenient. It doesn't want us to walk 15 miles, as much as it might not hurt me. So it tries to calculate that for just any type of search from a proximal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's hard to manipulate, but it's a factor.
So just piggybacking off that. So like, I foresee that if you are like a coffee shop or like a local Thai restaurant, you can't manipulate that at all, because you can't move like, you don't want to set up. It's like, if you're an attorney, you can set up technically, like, based on search volume, based on county or something like that. If you really wanted to set up, offices in different places just to capture that, because it doesn't matter, right? But if you're a Thai food, then people are showing up at the location. So, right. I mean, is that still factor too? Like, are you still seeing a lot of success with people opening up, like, like I have still, they're still working and still ranking, but for our agency, we're only in Miami, but I have 5 other virtual offices that I was able to get verified, postcard, and then, reviews on those. So those have stuck for like 5 years. I mean, is that still a thing? Are you still finding ways to, like, open up offices? Is that,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think here's something we always try to get our clients to consider. For example, I know a lot of people that come to us, for example, big ones like a dentist, and they're like, hey, we want to get locations in all these suburbs, and that's great. They want visibility to their practice. It's understandable. But when you actually look at the numbers, you're like, man, you're like a 50-minute drive. Like, do you really think, like, what's your conversion going to be, right? Because you're going to invest in getting visible. And here's the thing. We found some things that manipulate the proximity, as crazy as that sounds, because it's, again, the challenge is you can't move your address, right? Like, you can't move your Thai shop or your dental practice. But so that's the first thing we tell people is, like, what's your goal here in terms of, like, because I don't want you to invest the money per month and then we're generating a ton of calls and they realize you're 50 minutes away and they no longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's a waste of money. It's a bad user experience. So, but other than that, like, there are some ways to increase it. But it is difficult. We do a lot of geo silos on the site with content.
Meaning what?
So neighborhood pages that can work pretty well.
So if you're a dentist, Like, and where do you draw the line on that too? Because a lot of people ask me this, like, are you still doing, I'm just going to unload this question on you. Like, are you still doing by zip code? Like, how many zip codes would you put on a website? Like, how many neighborhoods? Is that based on authority, keyword, search volume? Like, how do you kind of determine?
We always start with the actual viability of it working well for the client, not in terms of getting the job done for them, but like, do people want to drive across town to eat your Thai, or should we focus on more close proximity marketing to get a higher percentage of those people to convert and be visible? So like we don't really draw the line that much. I mean, we do tell people up front, if you're in a different, every time you move, what do they call, like a licensed municipality, your chances of ranking there go down. Um, and there's just a quick check you can do, like just Googling in that area. Like if all of the businesses are in that area, right? Like they have that address of the suburb or whatever, your chances of ranking are a lot less likely. And that's just a fact. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it can get close. Now, neighborhood-wise, I like that because, for example, you get into even medium-sized or larger cities, and that's where we like a geogrid where you can see the different nodes based on lat and long. You can say, hey, I want to see where we rank every 500 feet across the entire city, or at least across, like maybe like 188 nodes or whatever the big one ends up being, or points, whatever. But you can see how you're going and say, okay, well, this on the north side of Miami or wherever, we have like no visibility. Would they be interested? Like if you're a contractor or a lawyer, right? Like it depends on the behavior of how the purchasing journey really works.
Yeah.
Like if they're going to go to you, let's work on it. We can do content about the neighborhood. We can do just more geo content. So we have a lawyer in Idaho, and just by building prominence over time, like he dominates into other states just because, and there's a few factors there. The one is like some of it's a bit rural. So he just based on his authority, he's picking up additional visibility because there's not a lot of competition. Others is just there's so much authority that he's breaking into packs he typically wouldn't have. But I mean, we're talking like there's work being done to that for like 6 or 7 years. The amount of authorities, not something a lot of people are going to achieve in a campaign, in the life of a campaign.
So unpacking that a little bit more. So when you say geo content, you're referring to blog posts, not service pages, correct?
Right. And sometimes you can use service pages. That's mostly used for smaller towns,
Okay.
stuff like that. We'll create an entire silo. Like instead of having a personal injury attorney in Miami, we'll start, which I don't know Miami at all. I shouldn't have used as an example. We'll start hitting the little towns around there. We'll start hitting just, the address is different. Like it might not be a Miami address, but it's small enough where we can bust into the pack.
In you need a GMB for those to rank though, correct?
Depends how small the municipality is. In a lot of cases, yeah. But we have a lot of really good luck with deploying a ton of geo silos on the website and doing okay organically and boosting the overall authority. But you're just not going to get away with that in bigger markets or even medium-sized markets. It's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I mean, that's what I've always been like. I think the main question that I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that I get all the time is, so like the example I always use, really the last large scale local SEO campaign we did was for a cafe chain here in Miami. They had like 10 locations, right? Mm-hmm. So what we did is we set up a location page on their website and then set up a cafe page for each location, like based on where they were, like Wynwood, downtown, South Miami, etc. And because they had actual cafes, we were able to get locations there easy, tied the location to that landing page. They all ranked and they were, a big authority brand. So they crushed it. Right. That kind of makes plain sense. But again, that's an example to your point of where you're able to get a verified GMB where people are always leaving reviews because there's so much foot traffic coming into those stores that those just kind of pick up naturally. Right. But in the example of, I think, like more of the high ticket lead gen, again, we'll call it so like contractors, roofers, lawyers, agencies, where you probably only have one location and you might not even have people working there. Right. In that case, then would it be worth it? I guess depending. So basically you would make the decision based on what the the quality and the revenue cap, I guess, based on the leads. So an attorney, if you're a PI attorney, your leads are worth a shitload. It might be worth getting an office space in South Miami just for that location. Yeah.
I always encourage my lawyers. That's the first thing I say. I'm like, hey, look, all you need's a door that has your signage on it. That's it. You don't have to go there. Forward the mail. But I mean, what you spend, I mean, I know around here you can get them for peanuts, but you know, in Miami, I don't know what like one tiny little office would cost a month, 1,000.
Yeah, depending. Yeah.
Something tiny though. I mean, and you look at 12 grand a year, man. You hit even conservatively 2 PI cases, you're in the green. So
yeah.
like anything where there's a higher ticket, agencies for sure. I mean, you know that.
No, definitely. So yeah, so it's so just unpacking proximity a little bit more too. So is proximity based on, and bear with me while I explain this for a second, is proximity based on the keyword search or based on the business? Meaning, like for the most part, if you're looking for an SEO agency in Miami, you're not really being like South Miami, you're just like Miami SEO agency, right? So does the proximity of the office matter as long as it's in Miami, like anywhere in Miami? Or is it then based on where that person is searching from in Miami pinged against that as well?
There's a lot of speculation around if there's certain categories, and categories being like niches, right, on the GMB. There's a lot of speculation around if certain categories are viewed a little differently. Again, it's a massively different buyer journey from us trying to go grab a quick bite a couple blocks down on foot than me looking for a lawyer or an agency. And I think it'd be irresponsible for me to have an absolute answer there just because like we don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say if you always err on the side of Google wanting to serve, they serve still based on cluster a lot as well. I don't know if anyone ever saw that when you do searches, there's like ranking clusters, and they've been broken up a bit, but that used to be a really hot way to just break into a pack if you got a listing verified, and we used to triangulate the cluster of the top 3 listings, and they were almost always clustered, or the top few that were, you triangulate and put it in the center. And that used to work so well. So there's still the cluster thing to consider, but not quite as much. You know, at the end of the day, just always assume it's going to be the proximity of the person searching to the business always. Even if X% of the time you're wrong, whether it's based on category or something else behind the scenes, we'll never know because it's, we don't quite have the whole formula, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think just to summarize there, just from my understanding of this, is that like to me, the first step is really like if you're doing local SEO, that's very broad now, right? We used to just consider local SEO just like, hey, maps pack. But now it's like, dude, you have to understand, as you said, the customer and the buyer journey, depending on if it's a coffee shop, a restaurant, a nightclub, a lawyer, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to kind of just take one giant step back and ask common sense. Like if I'm searching for this, like, am I okay calling somebody who's 20 miles away from me?
Exactly.
If not, then like let's talk about the conversation of maybe putting an office there if it's financially, if they're going to see an ROI based on that location, just based on that. Cool. You also mentioned too about close proximity marketing. Are you doing anything non-SEO related in there? Like, are you doing local ads, GMB ads? Have you seen any success with those if you have?
Yeah, we run a lot of media buying. We have an interesting kind of mergers acquisitions deal with a little boutique media buying company, and that's really exciting. So yeah, GMB ads do well. We're not doing anything too much more hyper local than that, at least in a non-SEO sense. One thing I know you'll love that we really started pushing is local guest posting, local link building to geo sites. Or geographically relevant websites. They're everywhere and they're so easy to get. It's such a different environment for your outreach, and it kind of serves a dual purpose because, I mean, if anyone listening that took your blueprint, there's guest posting and how to scale it modules in there. I know because I watched them, and I stole what I liked from you and put it in my agency, which it was great, right? Really,
That's for, man. That's what it's for.
Yeah, like I was like, oh yeah, let me have that. But using that type of training, like a lot of people just immediately think, man, this is like it's the same thing. It's just the modifiers are going to be local centric instead of niche, or you know what I mean? So we do a lot of local directory stuff. We do a lot of local outreach, and it's so easy. I was actually doing a quick thing with the team the other day, and I was hyping them up. I was doing my Tony Robbins. Guys, this shit's so easy. And our one competitor we found had a link, and I called him during the meeting. And I called him. I'm like, hey, how can we get involved? Like, I see such and such law firms involved. I want to get involved. They sent me over a packet, like the whole enchilada. And I mean, that's not good time for me. I was just boosting my team, but calling for, I mean, it's a very authoritative local site, regional actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that local guest posting kills it. And that's a great way to also build proximity where you're boosting your geographic relevance in the eyes of Google. Like, dude, if there's, and we have, I hope you don't, can I give a free plug? I have some free stuff.
Whatever you want, dude. I mean, I actually heard you, for anyone watching this too, I heard you talking about some of the functionality of Local Viking without mentioning Local Viking. It's important to note that when you were talking about those grids, that you're referring to your software Local Viking, just for anyone paying attention. So go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I didn't want to.
No, dude,
but wait, there's more. Turn into the OxyClean, man. I'm also sponsored by Deer Park Springwood. I'm kidding, so we give away a free resource since the whole pandemic bullshit. I know it has a lot of people that are, your entertainment time is affected. You're spending a lot more time looking at how to improve yourself, your business. So we gave away a local SEO toolbox. And that's on Local Viking. It's on the blog. You'll find it.
I'll link to it. We type these up. I'll link to it underneath. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah. We have a thing in there, a spreadsheet that we basically, every directory we found, I mean, it's aggregated. We just, from stuff we found, we stole a bunch of lists and we combined it. And it's a big spreadsheet that covers, it has a list of the niches and a list of the cities, everything we have. So you can make a copy, you can add to it, but grabbing those local links, those niche directories, I know it's people glaze over those for some reason. They're in my opinion more powerful than secondary citations these days, right?
So let's talk more about links, because authority was one of the 3 prongs that you said. You just talked about. I'm just going to kind of rapid fire these like link types, and if they're still valuable. And also too, before I get that, you were talking about local guest posts. Are you linking to the GMB listing or to the website?
A lot of times we'll have to settle for the website, but if you can link to the GMB, embed the GMB. Another nice thing about local is you can kind of have a little more control. We're like, hey, do you mind if we embed our GMB there? Right? I'll give you an extra $25. I mean, it's so cheap working with the local people.
Yeah, it really is.
You know that. You've done that, correct?
Yeah, we used to do, when we were working with this client with that local client, they were paying us like $12,000 a month. So we did like a very high touch like outreach campaign where we were bringing like influencers to like have some free stuff. And then we hired a videographer. They gave us a big budget. So they took video and then we sent back to the people and like basically insisted that they link from their blogs. So dude, we were rolling in links from local blogger, like food bloggers, fashion blog. Like it was shooting fish in a barrel. And it became a really good case study for us. We don't do that for most clients, but what we do is a lot of just kind of like, if you are a local restaurant, like, how many local bloggers and travel bloggers and food bloggers, like, and a lot of people make the mistake of just going to Google, but they're on Instagram, dude. You know what I'm saying? Just do a local search on Instagram, hit them up on Instagram. It's the same process, dude. Like people always ask me about this link building training, and we've updated some of it, but so much of it hasn't changed, dude. It's the same shit. You know what I'm saying? You're finding somebody, you're sending an email. That's it. But I agree. Like people overlook the local search modifiers and those the easiest ones because no one's hitting them up, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like
they're not saturated.
Yeah, because people are looking for like based on DA, and they're like, dude, bloggers nowadays they're focused on Instagram and YouTube. They're not focused on their website. So they might have a DA1 website, but like they're creating real stuff. They're not linking out to shitty sites. Like it's actually a much better link in my opinion than
plus, the chance of getting real referral traffic from local people. I mean, that's powerful.
Yeah, I have a friend who's doing that now, and he calls it PR. It's not quite PR, but he's basically guest posting on local websites and calling it PR, and he's killing it, dude. Just by changing that positioning, because in a sense, to I guess a less educated client, it really is. But all right, so back to the authority discussion. So you would obviously link to the GMP if you can, embed it if you can. If not, you'll settle for the local landing page, obviously. Citations, those are still a thing, and like where are you getting citations from?
We do we have something called essential citations, and then we split that from secondary citations. Secondary is when you go to any website on the internet that sells citations and you order 350 of them, and they're cheap. Like, you're gonna get their directories. It gives you the structured citation, right? But they're just the essentials are the Yelps. So, dude, there's like Yelp is one of the big sites that Google pulls data from locally. We've seen cases where adding stuff to Yelp has caused new GMB categories to get created.
Interesting.
Like, very, like, yeah, it's just like if you get your client a Wikipedia page and they immediately have a knowledge graph populated. I mean, you have to remember Google's just a big aggregator, so you make sure, or curator, I guess you would call it. You make sure your content's on the places, on the sites it loves to pull from. So we love the Yelp, we love those top ones. You get a Bing listing, all of that
Mhm.
stuff, and there's a handful of sites. It's all in that toolbox too. We have the
I
list
was
of
going to ask you. So you have a list of those, and then what? You have a VA manually create those. Are you? But you're obviously double checking that if the client has it already, correct?
correct, absolutely.
And if they
Which
and if they do, sorry to cut you off. Are you asking for edit access to make the pages look a certain way?
Yep, because a lot of times now your Yelps and stuff's one thing, but when you start getting into like niche citations, like there's a lot of opportunity to really optimize those. A lot of times you can create posts on there, and I don't subscribe to the school of thought of no follow and do follow and the massive I haven't for years. I used to get lit up about that,
Hmm.
and it's fine to have a different opinion. Like, who the hell am I, right? But like a lot of them are do follow links. If you're really bullish on making sure you get as many of those as possible, you can create these little posts. You can lay links behind them. Like, there's a lot of opportunity on a lot of those sites that'll get passed over by a VA, unless you dig in and understand that there's those additional opportunities and make a note for them. But yeah, we have everything. So we created a hybrid model real quick on this, where it's just we have the offshore teams complete as much of the kind of the manual adding of content, images, stuff like that. And then it all runs through our someone in one of our American offices, where they're going to quality control. They're going to make sure they have the logins from the client. So running it like that's been a successful model for us. But yeah,
And,
um,
you also mentioned directories too, correct?
yeah.
So is that also in your little toolkit that you have?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Um, no,
And,
I
uh,
really go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask about, like, directories have always kind of been traditionally a spammy source. Is this just general directories? Do you just have a very specific list of ones that you guys have like vetted? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah. So the essential ones, the Yelp stuff like that, they're just you need to be there. Otherwise, like those secondary ones we talked about a minute ago, you can grab them, but you can also like not grab those. In my
Yeah.
opinion, in my findings, the big directories you want are the niche specific and geo specific. San Francisco Business.com, grab that all day long.
Mhm.
Grab the paid ones. Everyone sleeps on the paid ones, man. We just bought a $2,500 a year Chamber of Commerce link, a local one, not the national chamber, a local chamber. Dude, we've had possum issues, which is basically filtering based on address issues in GMB, local algorithm. We've literally had possum issues that got reversed with one of those links, control test. You never can, like, we had all of our controls in place. You never convinced me it was anything else. And it's just, there's really, and dude, it's another thing. Like, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is not going to drop. Now, that link was like $600 one, or maybe one time or a year. They're all different, but
Yeah.
those look, dude, buy them.
Yeah.
Buy all of those niche directories, man.
And when you say secondary, I think in my head like Brown Book, like those type of ones that you basically just go to. And I'm not just bad mouthing any vendors, but you just go to a vendor and pay like $20. They basically just blast it out.
Exactly.
I tend to agree with you on that. That I don't think they hurt. If it's a new website, I think go ahead and do it. But like the problem that I found is now is that I did that back in the day, and now we get a lot of branded search, and a lot of those show up in some of our branded search, and like they have our old logo. Not that it's bad. It's just kind of like, to me, it can, over time, it can detract from the brand a little bit. Like, I don't want somebody discovering our brand that way.
Sure.
Um, aside from that, I don't really have any issue with them. And there are services out there too. I don't know if you guys do them at Web 2.0 Ranker, but citation cleanup services that actually do a really good job of getting that garbage cleaned up.
Yeah, yeah. Which we did real quick. We did a lot of tests on creating bad citations, duplicates, stuff with the wrong information. We found that's kind of bullshit too. Like we couldn't hurt listings. The one thing that hurts. Oh man, maybe I shouldn't even share it. Don't do that. Don't use this in an evil way, please. But if your client has, like, if you're in Miami and you would have a 1,000 citations created, 500, 200, whatever, that put you in a different city that's not Miami, we've found that to have some negative effect. Other than that, like duplicates, NAP issues, like, I don't know if you saw, and this is kind of related, I'll circle back quick, but Google's deprecating a lot of schema.
I didn't see that.
Like a bunch of the schema, they're just like, no, we're good. We're going to trust us more than some SEO trying to like mark up data and tell us what something's about. Yeah, they deprecated a bunch of it, or a few anyway. I mean, it's small in the grand scheme of the schema library, but which we also have a schema template in the toolbox, and I forgot to put it in there. We're giving everyone access to our schema app. It has the entire schema library. They can build their schema. That's free too.
Nice. I'll make sure to link to that, guys. Also, go ahead.
But I'm just saying, like, Google knows, like, Google, if you have your entity, your brand, if you have enough positive things that have the right information, Google's going to go with it. It's going to trust one Yelp listing over, a bunch of brown books at the end of the day. So that makes sense. Anyway, yeah.
And also too, I remember back in the day, I don't say back in the day, it was like a couple of years ago. I remember seeing a video that you guys did about geotagging. I think it was like Picasso. Was that you? Yeah. Is that still like an integral part of the process, or is that something where, so like one of the challenges I see with local SEO is like all the things that we just discussed, you have to do on top of normal SEO campaigns. So the scope for local SEO can actually be much larger in terms of like the work you have to do.
It is now, yeah.
Tough because you get paid less in almost all cases, except for attorneys, insurance, shit like that. But like stuff like geotagging, is that something that you still do for all your clients? Like how important is it? And would that be one of those things where it's like, all right, just based on the level of effort, they're paying us $500 a month. Like I'm not going to spend an extra 4 hours tagging fucking pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we actually, if you have to manually do it a bunch of times, it's probably not going to be the top of my priority list. I'd rather build some authoritative links. Having said that, we created an EXIF data optimization engine in Local Viking where you can put it in and you can generate EXIF data like with one click. So that makes it really nice. We're working on bulk upload now. So that saves me. Something else you can do is if you want to take a couple extra minutes and those nodes around the GeoGrid that you're not ranking really well in, you can grab the GPS coordinates or the Latin long, whatever, of those nodes and put it in Local Viking, and it'll spin up and tag for those nodes you're not performing well in. So then downloading that image and then pulling that over onto like your local neighborhood pages or your geo silos, it's something we do just because we have the technology and the people to do it. If you're doing $500 a month clients, first off, raise your prices. You're making businesses rich. If you're ranking businesses in 3-packs in any type of respectable market, like you're making, maybe not rich, but you're making them the most money in their market, right? Top 3. So like charge more, especially with the bullshit you have to deal with now with the suspensions, getting stuff re-verified. Like you don't find me I wouldn't even let my agency touch a campaign for less than probably $2,000 a month right now. Just wouldn't do it. And it's justifiable. You get one job, one client, like how much is that worth? A lot of industries can afford it several times over. But anyway, we do it because we're built to do it. If it was like, do I choose between this or another activity? In my opinion, there's other activities that are going to give you a bigger bang for your effort.
Right. Understood. So just continuing on the vein of like other local ranking factors, we talked a lot about proximity, which was awesome. I didn't really, I guess when looking through that scope, it makes sense, but I didn't really think about those things. We talked about authority and links. Are there any other like big ranking factors? Like, is there anything specific that people should be doing with their GMB pages? Like, should they be uploading posts? I know you can like add posts to them. Like, what are the other kind of like big local SEO ranking factors that people should pay attention to?
I mean, honestly, I think we covered the best ones. Your on page, whatever page you're linking the GMB to, that is a huge. That's one of the biggest things we see people lack on. Make sure whatever categories you have in your GMB that you have in an H tag, some type of H tag on the page it links to. Bunch of supporting content. Make sure the content's optimized. We do all of our SEO. I always look at it as like to simplify it. I know it's a very complex algorithm with hundreds of factors, but I try to simplify it into like simple algebra. Like if we solve for X, like Google gives you X to an extent. They show you the top sites or listings that they're ranking. So if we start from X and start reverse engineering back, I want to see how many pages they have. I want to look how many geo pages they have, how much content per page. I want to do as much to be in parity as possible. And then I know there's certain things I can do that's like best practice, right? So if they're lacking a little bit in an area, it doesn't mean I should lack. That's a time for me to capitalize, right?
Mhm.
But the on page is so important. That's a big one. Other than that, I mean, like people say, hey, do reviews help? Sure, you'll find arguments there, but at the end of the day, we've played with some tests and all the stuff kind of helps, right? Like if you go on a GMB posting spree, and this is coming from someone who I loved when everyone released GMB posting tools, how it became the alpha and the omega of local SEO, and like it just wasn't, right?
Hmm.
And it isn't. Like I sell, like LV has a posting tool in it, and I'm telling you, don't buy it just to do posting to think you're going to rank, because you're not going to. But it's something we add in there because we made it as simple as possible. Something that is cool is all of your posts go to a GMB site, and they were talking about redoing how they were going to let those index, and then you can still get them indexed. All those posts become inner pages. We have a one-click daisy chaining option, so it becomes this little interlinked mini site. Can serve as a structured citation. I mean, I don't know. That's the biggest benefit to me, is you can quickly do something if you're gonna have it in your arsenal. If not, like you'll probably be okay, man. Build a link. Build a
Yeah.
really high-powered link to your website. Try to get a link to your GMB CID URL. Stuff like that.
Yeah, people love to debate, especially about local SEO. But I feel like honestly, it's just best practices just apply. You know what I mean?
It
Just
is.
like
It really is.
if you have a really good checklist almost and someone who knows how to do it, because it doesn't. I mean, I guess one of the negatives is that this takes a lot of time, but one of the good things is it doesn't necessarily require somebody who's very senior or veteran. Like you can get a VA to help you out with this stuff and just
Correct.
like knock it off. And I know that's what a lot of agencies do.
Sure.
A lot of the legwork, I'm sure you guys do as well. You just leverage somebody who's less cost. But anyways, that was all the questions that we had, man. I appreciate it. Do you have anything else that, let me just check Facebook. If anyone's got any questions on Facebook, y'all can drop them in. Anything else that you want to talk about, plug? Feel free, man. I encourage people to plug their shit here, man. My audience is ready to buy.
Well, I don't really have, honestly, I'd be cool right now. I don't have to make a single sale and I'm happy. I have a free group, Local Client Takeover. Sometimes I do sell some stuff in there, but we try to provide value. Dude, listen, I don't care if you don't like ever buy Local Viking, but we just released a blog post. It's the GMB A to Z ranking guide. It's over 30,000 words, tons of pictures. There's the free local SEO toolbox. I mean, dude, if no one ever buys, I'm cool. But check that thing out. If you guys like it, give it a share. I'll tell you, I get a little salty sometimes. I see some of the stuff that gets shared. I'm like, that's not that great, man. So I'm really trying to encourage people to, if they like it, if they found some good info, but it covers a lot, man. It has a lot of SOPs in there, like
Right.
actual how to build the certain type of like cloud links or different stuff you can use to push. And again, it's all free. And I guess the only other thing I'd really plug is that weekly Web 20 newsletter. Again, you don't ever have to outsource to us, but that newsletter, dude, we every week we give free SEO tests that our team works on. We give tons of info, man. Just come check out my free info. If you ever want to develop some type of additional relationship, cool. If not, man, just consume it. If you like it, give it a share, and I will be extremely appreciative. That's it for me, dude.
Absolutely.
I don't
Yeah, I'll
have
make
any.
sure
I
I'll
don't
make
have
sure
any
to get these things linked. And I'll talk to you offline too about maybe with this video, just cutting some of these things up and adding them just into our training just to continuously drive people up to you guys. Like I said, I mean, local is definitely something that I get asked a lot about, but it's just not like it's not that I don't take on local clients, but just the way that we're structured, it's just
Sure.
economically not viable for our
I,
agency. So,
I know we talked before, man. Let's talk, man. Get some couple training modules in there for you or something. I
yeah,
know
that'd be amazing.
we touched base before, but we're busy, dude. So
Well, no, I feel like now is a good time. Honestly, like, with everything that's going on and like everyone is working on themselves, but like y'all really should be taking time to like get some extra stuff done. Like this is one of the times where like it's actually okay to be sitting in front of a computer for 10 to 12 hours.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, and our calendars are definitely less full.
yeah,
The amount of stuff that we've been able to sprint out in the last 2 weeks has really, really been like amazing, man. You know what I'm saying? So if you're looking at it from the point of view of like being able to get more projects done, stuff that's been on the shelf for a while, dude, now's the time to do it. And I would love to talk to you about it. I'll definitely ping you offline. I would love to get,
cool, man.
whatever we could come up with. I know that people would love it. So, as always, brother, appreciate you coming out. Stay safe, stay healthy.
You too, buddy.
Take care, man.
See you, bro.